He was just an old man in a cafeteria until a young Navy SEAL spotted a tattoo that unlocked a 50-year-old secret mission the government never wanted revealed. Walter Dandridge didn't expect to be seen that day. Not really. Not in the way that mattered. He was just another old man in a veterans center in Norfolk, Virginia, one of many. He sat at the far end of the cafeteria, just like always. Same table, same chair. Back slightly hunched, cap low over his brow, worn hands wrapped around a chipped mug of black coffee. He wasn't invisible, just passed over. And honestly, he preferred it that way. Most folks walked right past him. Volunteers smiled politely. Staff offered him meals, but no one ever really looked. The kind of look that says, I know who you are, or at least, I want to. That was until the tall guy walked in. White t-shirt, short cropped hair, athletic build, and that posture. You could tell from the way he moved. Calm, alert. This one was military. Still in it, probably. The kind who scans a room without realizing it. Head on a swivel. Always assessing. Always reading. Logan Trevane had only meant to stop by and drop off some donation boxes. He wasn't here for long. He just needed a signature and maybe a handshake for the newsletter his CO wanted back at the naval base. Quick errand. But just as he passed the cafeteria doors, something stalled him. He glanced across the room, and that's when he saw it. A tattoo, faint, faded. Ink bleeding slightly into wrinkled skin, just barely visible beneath the rolled sleeve of Walter's green flannel shirt. But it wasn't just any tattoo. It was a jagged falcon, mid-dive, claws out, slicing through what looked like coiled barbed wire. Logan blinked. He hadn't seen that mark in years. Maybe since he was 16, sitting cross-legged on the floor of his grandfather's garage, watching the old man clean his tools with the same methodical calm he used to cut wood. That falcon had been carved into his upper arm. His grandpa used to joke it hurt more than getting shot. Only a few men had that ink, he'd said. They were a special unit, volunteers sent on unofficial missions during Vietnam, ones that didn't make it into textbooks, or the news, or even official records. His grandfather called them ghost jobs. Logan stepped into the cafeteria and stopped. His pulse kicked up. There was no way. No, that couldn't be him. But the tattoo was real. The lines might have faded, but the image was identical. Logan's eyes narrowed. His grandfather told him the man who pulled him out of a burning hut near Savannakhet in 1970 had that same tattoo. He didn't remember much about the guy, just that he was black, calm under pressure, and never left a man behind. Said the man didn't talk much, just acted. Walter kept his eyes on his coffee. He hadn't noticed the young man watching him from across the room. Logan didn't move. He just stood there, staring, barely breathing. Was it really him? He looked around. No one else seemed to care. Just an old guy in a cap. But to Logan, it suddenly felt like the room had tilted. He stepped closer. There was something heavy in the air now. The kind of weight you feel when you're about to cross a line between story and truth. "Excuse me, sir," Logan said quietly. Walter looked up, eyes sharp but tired. He didn't smile, just gave the kind of nod that says, "What do you need?" Logan pointed gently toward the tattoo. "That falcon. Is that from Recon Viper 1? Walter's hand stilled. He set the mug down, slow. He didn't speak right away. Instead, his eyes narrowed. Just slightly. The name hadn't been said out loud in decades. Finally, he muttered, "Where'd you hear that?" Logan took a seat across from him without waiting to be asked. "My grandfather. Died 6 years ago. He was in Laos, 70. He told me about a man who dragged him out of a fire. Had that same tattoo." Walter stared. His shoulders didn't move, but something behind his eyes did. A flicker, like a drawer creaking open after years of being stuck shut. "You got a name?" he asked. "Logan Trevane." A long pause. Then Walter said something Logan would never forget. "Your grandfather was Earl Trevane?" Logan nodded. "Yes, sir." Walter exhaled. Deep, like something he'd been holding in for years had finally escaped. "Thought he died in that fire." he said, more to himself than to Logan. Didn't think he made it out. But Walter hadn't told the whole story yet, not even close. Walter didn't talk much about the war, not because he'd forgotten. Quite the opposite. Some things, once seen, never leave you. They carve themselves in quiet corners of the mind, like that falcon tattoo, forever inked in his skin, whether others noticed or not. But Logan Trevane wasn't just anyone. He was Earl's grandson. And Earl Trevane wasn't just another soldier. Walter leaned back in his chair, his fingers brushing lightly over the tattoo. For a second, it looked like he might not say anything else, like he'd closed the door that had just creaked open, but then he spoke. "I remember the smell before anything else," he began. "Wet jungle. Mud, diesel, smoke." Logan leaned forward, listening. "Laos was hell," Walter continued. "People talk about Vietnam, but some of the worst stuff happened across the border. Off the books. We weren't even supposed to be there." His voice was low, gravelly, but steady. Not dramatic. Just honest. "We were inserted northeast of Savannah-Ket. Recon Viper 1. Small unit. 6 of us. Dropped in, no backup, no extraction plan. Our job was to confirm movement, find the supply caches, report back. But we never made it to extraction." Logan nodded slowly. He'd heard bits of this before, but never like this. Never from someone who'd actually been there. "Got ambushed near the tree line," Walter said. "One of ours stepped on a tripwire. Everything went up. Sounded like the earth cracked open. Earl was thrown into a hut, hit his head on the way down. By the time I got to him, the whole damn place was burning." Walter paused. His lips tightened, eyes flicking somewhere far away. "Flames licking the thatch. Screams everywhere. Couldn't hear much. Just ringing. I thought I was already dead. But then I saw his hand. Just his fingers, poking out from under a broken beam." Logan swallowed, his throat dry. "You pulled him out," he said quietly. "I tried," Walter said. "The beam was heavy. Fire was all around us. My uniform caught. I remember thinking, this is it. But somehow I got him loose. Threw him on my back, ran until my legs gave out. We both collapsed near a ravine. I covered us in mud, hid there for hours. Then what happened?" Walter shrugged. "Waited for dark. Found a stream. Followed it for 3 days. Finally made contact with an extraction team. He was half conscious, moaning. I thought he wasn't gonna make it." Logan nodded again. His chest felt tight. "He did," he said. "He came home. Got married. Had my dad. Raised me." Walter didn't say anything at first. Just looked down at his mug. Then, with a tired smile, he said, "That's good. I never knew." Logan exhaled. "He talked about you a few times," he said. "Said he never knew your name. Just remembered you had that tattoo. Said if he ever saw that falcon again, he'd know it was you." Walter chuckled softly. "That old thing?" "Yeah," Logan said. Funny how something that small could carry so much. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Logan asked, "Why didn't you tell anyone? About the mission? About what you did?" Walter looked up. "Would they have listened?" he asked. "A black soldier? Telling stories about a war we weren't even supposed to be in? We came home to silence, son. Silence and spit. You learn to keep your mouth shut." Logan's jaw clenched. "That's not right." "No, it's not," Walter said. "But it's how it was." But Logan couldn't shake the feeling that this story wasn't just about the past. Something about it still hadn't come full circle. Logan didn't usually get emotional. The training hammered that out of him early. Control the breathing, quiet the heart, stay present. But sitting across from Walter Dandridge, something inside him stirred. It wasn't just the story or the tattoo. It was the man. The way he spoke like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. No polished speech, no dramatic pauses, just truth, stripped down and still standing. "You ever think about reaching out?" Logan asked. "To him, I mean, my grandfather?" Walter hesitated, then gave a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Didn't know where to start. Didn't even know if he made it out until now. Men like us, we don't leave a trail. We disappear after the fight." Logan leaned forward. "But you didn't disappear. You saved him." Walter glanced at him, not with pride, but with the weariness of someone who'd carried that moment longer than anyone realized. I did what I had to, what I'd want someone to do for me. The room around them buzzed with quiet conversation, trays clinking, a television playing some daytime court show in the corner. But for Logan, all of that faded. "You still live around here?" he asked. Walter shrugged. "Near Portsmouth. 1 bedroom. Been there 20 years. Drive a '92 Buick that still runs if I sweet-talk it." Logan cracked a smile. "You married?" Walter's expression turned distant. "Once. Long time ago. Didn't last. She wanted someone who could sit still. I wasn't done moving yet." Logan nodded. "Any kids?" "Nope," Walter said, then paused. "Not that I know of." There was a pause between them. Then Logan, looking at the tattoo again, asked, "What made you get that, the falcon?" Walter didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "We were the last of our kind. That unit didn't exist on paper. We needed something to mark it, something to remind us who we were, if we ever forgot. And the barbed wire. Means you made it out," Walter said. "But not clean." That stuck with Logan. "Your story deserves to be told," he said, voice firm now. "Not just to me, to people. Vets, kids, everyone." Walter raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly would I say?" "Exactly what you just told me," Logan said. "But louder." Walter gave him a look, part skeptical, part amused. "You trying to be my publicist now?" "No," Logan said. "Just someone who thinks the truth matters." Walter sat back. Something unreadable passed through his face. He looked around the room. The posters on the wall, the forgotten medals in the display case, the faces that passed him every day without really seeing him. Then he said, "I told that story one time before." Logan straightened. "Yeah?" "Back in '73, to a VA official. Figured it was time. Thought maybe they'd honor the team. But the guy didn't write anything down. Just nodded along, like I was making it up. Few weeks later, I got a form letter in the mail. Unable to verify your service under designated operation codes. That was it." Logan clenched his jaw. "That's bull," Walter cut him off. "That's how it was. We weren't ghosts because we wanted to be. We were ghosts because they made us." Silence hung between them. Logan looked down, rubbing his hands together. Then he said, "I think I'm supposed to meet people like you. Not just shake hands and move on. Maybe it's time people knew the whole truth." Walter looked at him, then gave a faint smile. "You talk like your grandfather." "I take that as a compliment." "It is," Walter said quietly. He had fire. But he listened too. That's rare. But as much as Walter seemed to open up, Logan sensed there was still something the old man hadn't shared. Something deeper buried under years of silence. Walter didn't speak right away. He took a breath through his nose and stared into the steam of his coffee like he was reading something only he could see. Then, with a quiet shift in his tone, he said, "There's more to what happened that night. More than I ever told anyone. Not even your grandfather." Logan leaned in. He didn't say anything, just waited. It was July. "Rain season," Walter began. "We were 8 clicks off the trail, about 2 miles south of the Balavan Plateau. Tall grass, slick hills, heat so thick you could chew it. Recon Viper 1 had been inserted 6 days prior. Supplies were running low, tempers shorter." He paused, flexing his fingers like he could still feel the weight of the M16 in his hands. "There were 6 of us. Me, Spence, Ortega, Juno, Red, and your grandfather. Earl was the radio man, but he could fight like hell. Spence led us. Sharp guy, no nonsense. The rest of us were tired, bruised up, but alert." Walter's voice had settled into a rhythm now, like he wasn't talking to Logan anymore, but to the memory itself. "We found what we came for. 2 trucks parked under a tarp covered in ferns, ammo crates stacked chest high, and a single village built around it. No more than 20 people, mostly women and children, maybe 1 or 2 young men. We weren't supposed to engage, just report. But someone must have seen us, because not an hour later they came." "Who?" Logan asked. "Pathet Lao," Walter said, "mixed with NVA regulars. We thought we were ghosts. Turns out they had dogs. Picked up our trail fast. We were boxed in by sundown. Juno went down early, took a shot through the neck. We pulled him into a hut, tried to stop the bleeding. Spence said we'd have to hold until extraction. Walter clenched his jaw. But the call never went through. Something was jamming our signal. Earl tried again and again, working that damn radio with blood on his hands. Then, boom! One of their grenades took out the side wall. Whole place lit up. He closed his eyes for a moment. I remember grabbing Earl. He was unconscious, leg bent wrong, still clutching the radio. The fire was climbing fast. Ortega yelled something. I couldn't hear it. My ears were ringing. Then the roof collapsed. Walter's eyes opened again, sharper this time. I should have left him. That's what training tells you. Save yourself. But something in me wouldn't. I dug through what was left of the wall, grabbed him by his vest and crawled out. Everything after that was a blur. Flames, bullets, screams. I ran blind. Don't even know how I didn't get hit. I just ran. He glanced at Logan. I didn't even check if he was breathing until hours later. Logan's throat tightened. You saved him. That's all that matters. Walter gave a tired smile. Maybe. But the part I never said, the rest of our team, they didn't make it. Logan's face dropped. I thought Spence was right behind me. Thought Red got out too. But the ravine, only me and Earl made it down. I waited 3 days before help came. Every hour I thought they'd find us. But no one did. Did you ever get closure? Logan asked. Walter shook his head. Closure's something people made up to sell books. You survive. You carry. You learn how to walk with ghosts. Logan didn't know what to say to that. He felt the weight of every word, like he'd been handed a memory not his own, but one he was meant to protect. Walter leaned forward now, speaking low. There's a file. Hidden in my place. A field map, some dog tags, one of Red's letters he never mailed. Been sitting there for decades. Never knew what to do with it. Maybe it's time someone else held it. Logan didn't move. He just said, I'll take care of it, I swear. Walter looked at him, then gave a single nod. Then maybe all that running wasn't for nothing. But even as Walter handed over that piece of the past, Logan knew something wasn't sitting right, because someone, somewhere, had kept that mission buried for a reason. Walter sat back, shoulders heavy, as if speaking those words had cost him more than any firefight ever had. Logan stayed quiet. He didn't want to fill the space with noise. He wanted to understand the silence, to feel it. I came back stateside in August of '70, Walter said after a long pause. Flew into Travis Air Force Base. No fanfare. Just the sound of boots hitting pavement and a sergeant barking for us to keep moving. He paused again, fingers tracing the rim of his coffee mug. I remember walking out of the airport in uniform. Thought I'd feel proud. Instead, I got spit on. Called names. I was 22, had shrapnel in my leg, and I was told to forget it ever happened. Forget the men I left behind. Forget the scars. Logan looked down. He'd heard stories like that before, but hearing them directly, from someone sitting 2 feet away, was different. You tried to report what happened? He asked. I did. Walter nodded. Went to a guy at the VA in Baltimore, showed him the field map, the tags, told him everything, names, coordinates, the whole timeline. And? He said my file had redactions, told me the mission didn't exist, that the paperwork I had didn't match any official OP, told me I must have confused details, said it was best not to push it. Walter gave a bitter laugh. I wasn't confused. I was erased. The words hung in the air. Sharp. Final. They called us ghost teams for a reason, he added. When things went south, they burned the paper trail, but those ghosts still breathe. They age. They carry. Logan's voice was tight. They just left you to rot? Walter shrugged. Some of the guys ended up in jail. Others vanished. I tried to get a job with the Postal Service. Turned down twice. Didn't pass the background check. No one ever said why. My military ID didn't mean anything. Because you were black, Logan said. Walter didn't respond right away. Then slowly. Part of it, yeah. The other part was the mission. They didn't want questions. And they sure didn't want to admit a bunch of unofficial soldiers saw and survived what they shouldn't have. Logan leaned forward. So what did you do? Odd jobs? Carpentry? Freight? Anything that paid cash under the table. Slept in my car a few times. Kept my head down. I tried to get help once more in '85. Went to the VA in Norfolk. Guy told me he'd never heard of Recon Viper 1. Same damn phrase. You're mistaken, sir. That's unbelievable, Logan muttered. Walter looked him dead in the eye. It's not unbelievable. It's American. That's what this country does to the people it's ashamed of. Logan sat back. Let that sink in. You ever think of writing a book? He asked. Walter smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I could barely afford paper, son. And who'd read it? Some washed-up ghost trying to prove he mattered? I would. This time the smile stuck. Maybe now, Walter said. But back then, you gotta understand, when the world stops calling your name, you stop saying it out loud. They sat in silence for a moment. The noise of the center hummed back into awareness. Forks on plates. Someone laughing at a card game. Life going on, even as truth sat across from it, nearly forgotten. You ever miss the team? Logan asked. Walter's eyes clouded again. Every damn day, he said. They were my brothers, even when we didn't talk, even when we fought. I still remember Ortega's laugh, Juno's crooked grin, and Spence. He had a way of staring off like he saw something the rest of us didn't. I think about them more now than I did back then. Why now? Because I'm almost done. And they never got to be old. They stayed 22, frozen. But Logan wasn't ready to let those memories die, not if there was a way to make the world finally listen. Walter didn't look like a man chasing redemption. He looked like someone who had accepted what the world handed him and found a way to keep standing. But to Logan, that wasn't enough. Not after everything he'd just heard. You know, Logan said, breaking the quiet between them. I've done 2 deployments. Afghanistan, Syria. I've seen combat, I've lost people, but I've never been erased. I get medals mailed to my house. People call me a hero at airports. Walter gave a short, almost sad chuckle. That's the difference 50 years makes, huh? I guess, Logan said. But sometimes I wonder if we just traded one kind of war for another. Walter's gaze lifted. What do you mean? I mean, Logan began. You fought overseas and came back to a country that wouldn't claim you. I fight overseas and come back to a country that only wants the story, not the truth. People love us when we're in uniform, but they stop listening when we take it off. Walter raised his brows, surprised. Didn't expect that from someone your age. I didn't either, Logan admitted. Not until I saw how fast people forget. My buddy Cole lost both his legs in a roadside blast. 2 weeks after we got home, he applied for disability. Got denied. Told he wasn't eligible because the injury happened during a classified op. Walter's face didn't change, but his eyes showed recognition. Sound familiar? Exactly, Logan said. It's like the stories get used up and then they throw away the people who lived them. Walter took a breath. You think it's going to change? I don't know, Logan said honestly. But I do know this. If we stop talking, it never will. Walter nodded slowly, thoughtfully. You know what's wild? He said. I spent decades thinking no one cared, and now here you are, sitting in front of me, knowing more about that night than anyone's ever asked me in 50 years. That's because I grew up with your story, Logan replied. My grandfather talked about you like a ghost that saved him, like some figure in a legend. And then I walk into this building and see a man drinking cold coffee alone, and I realize ghosts get old too. That made Walter smile for real. I'm not a hero, Logan. I panicked that night. I didn't think. I just moved. That's the part that makes it heroic, Logan said. You didn't think about being remembered. You just did it. Walter looked down, shaking his head gently. And yet, here I am, still wondering if it mattered. It did, Logan said. You saved a man who started a family, who raised a kid, who gave me a name. You mattered more than you'll ever know. Walter stared at him. For a moment he looked like he might say something. Instead, He just let out a breath he'd been holding far too long. "You know what I remember most from that night?" he asked. "What?" "Right after we crossed the ravine, I was lying in the mud with your grandfather half-conscious beside me." He opened one eye and whispered, "Tell me I'm not dead." And I said, "If we're both dead, this is a terrible afterlife." He laughed. Barely. But he laughed. First sound I'd heard from him since the explosion. Logan grinned. "Sounds like him." I didn't know what to do with that memory, so I just kept it. They sat in that moment, both knowing that this wasn't just two men swapping war stories. This was a passing of weight, of witness, of truth. "So what now?" Walter asked. Logan thought about it. "Now we figure out how to make this right. However we can." Walter shook his head with a slight smirk. "You sure about that? Once you start digging, things come up that people don't want unearthed. Then they should have buried them better," Logan said, without missing a beat. But Walter had lived long enough to know, once the truth starts resurfacing, somebody always wants to keep it buried. The next time Logan visited Walter, it wasn't for coffee or conversation. He came with a folder. Manila. Thick. Stuffed with printouts, photos, and military documents, some declassified, some not. Logan laid it on the table between them like he was setting down a live grenade. "I did some digging," he said. "Made a few calls. Spoke to a retired colonel I trained under. Had connections in the archives. Took some work, but I found it." Walter didn't touch the folder. Just looked at it. "What exactly am I looking at?" "Proof," Logan said. "Your unit. Recon Viper 1. They said it didn't exist. But I found a reference in a suppressed file tied to Operation Striker Watch. The coordinates match the ones on your map. Even found a blurred-out photo from a recon drone. 6 figures moving through the jungle. No names, but 6. Walter leaned back, eyes narrowed. "They buried it deep." "Yeah," Logan nodded. "Almost too deep." He opened the folder. Inside were grainy images, old memos with red stamps, fragments of radio logs. But the one thing Walter couldn't take his eyes off of was a photo. An aerial shot from July 12th, 1970. Blurry as hell, but just enough detail to see a clearing. A hut on fire, and what looked like 2 men crawling toward the tree line. Walter stared at it for a long time. "I know that tree," he said. Logan waited. "I remember the curve of the trunk. It bent sideways like it was trying to get away from something." He looked up, voice lower now. "Why are you doing this, Logan?" "Because if this were my grandfather sitting here, still breathing, I'd want someone to do the same." Walter gave a long, tired smile. "You got his heart. That's for sure." Logan continued. "I submitted a recommendation for a medal. Post-service citation for bravery under fire. It's just a start, but it's on record now." Walter's smile faded. "I don't want a medal." Logan blinked. "Why not?" "I spent too long believing I didn't exist," Walter said. "A ribbon won't change that. It won't bring my unit back. It won't erase the nights I slept in my car wondering if I imagined it all. But it might make the next guy think twice before ignoring someone like you," Logan said. Walter was quiet. "And besides," Logan added, "it's not really about the medal. It's about putting your name where it belongs. Not in some forgotten footnote. In history. In truth." Walter looked down at the folder again. "You're serious about this?" "I'm not letting it die in a file drawer." Walter thought for a long time, then finally said, "If you're gonna do this, don't do it for me. Do it for Spence. For Juno. For Red. They died out there. I just came back. I'm doing it for all of you," Logan said. "But mostly for you, because no one ever should have had to carry all this alone." Walter gave a small, exhausted nod. "You've got fire, son. That's rare, so I've been told," Logan replied, cracking a grin. For a brief moment, the air around them felt lighter, like something old had shifted, just enough to breathe. Walter reached out and pulled the folder toward him. "Then let's see what truth looks like on paper." Logan sat back, letting that land. Outside, traffic passed along Hampton Boulevard. unremarkable, ordinary. But inside that room, something had just changed. Maybe not for the world, but for one man who had been waiting a lifetime to be seen. But neither of them knew that the truth they'd stirred up was about to draw attention from people who had worked hard to keep it buried. When Logan walked into the Veterans Center a week later, something felt different. He wasn't alone this time. Behind him came two men from the Naval Historical Center in Washington, a woman from the Pentagon's POW/MIA accounting agency, and an independent journalist named Clara Reyes, who'd been quietly researching lost operations from the Vietnam era for the past 12 years. Word had spread. Carefully, quietly, and only to those who had reason to care. Logan had made sure of that. Walter was in his usual seat, sipping coffee like always. But when he saw Logan walk in with a folder under one arm and government types in tow, his eyes narrowed. "What the hell is this?" he muttered. Logan didn't smile. He just pulled out the chair across from Walter and said, "They're here for your story, and they're not here to silence it." Walter's hands tensed around the mug. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," Logan replied calmly. "But the world needs to hear it anyway." Clara stepped forward gently. She laid a recorder on the table and asked softly, "Mr. Dandridge, would you let me listen?" Walter looked at her for a long time. Then slowly, very slowly, he set down his coffee. He didn't speak right away, just nodded once. And the room seemed to pause. The cafeteria, always busy with staff, moving trays, and old men shouting over card games, grew quiet. Not because someone yelled, "Attention," but because something was happening. Something real. Logan stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes locked on Walter. And then Walter began to speak. He told them everything. Not with dramatic pauses or polished language, just with the plain weight of truth. He spoke of the mud, the stench, the sweat-soaked fear in Laos. He named the men. Spence, Ortega, Juno, Red, and how they fought with nothing but grit and bad luck. He described the ambush, the fire, Earl's unconscious body over his shoulder, the 3 days without food, and the silence that followed once they made it out. And then, the betrayal, the denial, the letter that said he didn't exist. No one interrupted him. Clara wiped her eyes once. The woman from the Pentagon took notes the entire time, jaw clenched, not saying a word. The two men from the Naval Historical Center exchanged glances more than once, but neither of them moved until Walter was done. When he finished, there was nothing left to say. Logan finally stepped forward, placing something on the table. It was a wooden box, simple, clean. And inside, an engraved plaque and a service ribbon with a citation tucked behind it. Unofficial, yes, but real. Walter looked at it like it didn't belong to him. "What's this?" "A recognition," Logan said. "Not from Congress, not from the VA, but from the people who heard you and believe you." Walter ran his fingers over the brass plaque. The name on it. Sergeant Walter Dandridge, Recon Viper 1. "Someone's gonna raise hell over this," Walter muttered. "Let them," Logan said. "They had 50 years to speak. It's your turn now." The people in the room clapped. Not a standing ovation. Not loud, just a quiet, heartfelt sound that meant more than medals ever could. And for a second, just one, Walter allowed himself to lean back, close his eyes, and feel it. Not the honor, not the applause, the recognition. After all this time, someone had listened. Later that day, as the group began to pack up, Clara leaned in and said, "We're doing a write-up, a full article, front page of the Historical Review. Your team's getting a proper place in the record." Walter just nodded. But as Logan turned to leave, Walter stopped him. "Hey," Logan turned. "You were right," Walter said. "Sometimes truth matters more than silence." Logan gave a half smile. "You gonna be okay?" Walter shrugged. "Guess I'll find out." But as Logan stepped outside into the sun, he knew this wasn't the end of the story, just the start of a truth that could finally breathe. Walter didn't go back to being invisible after that day. He still sat at the same table every morning, Same cap, same coffee. But something had shifted. People started stopping by, not to pity him or patronize him, just to ask questions. Listen, sit with him like his presence meant something more than a check mark on a roll sheet. One of the younger volunteers, Jared, maybe 24, started bringing in his tape recorder, said he wanted to preserve first-hand stories. Walter didn't correct him. He just talked. Some days it was about the jungle. Some days it was about his Buick refusing to start. But either way, people listened, and for the first time in a long time, Walter Dandridge felt real. Not remembered, not celebrated. Real. The story Clara published ran in the National Veterans Historical Review and then got picked up by 2 local Virginia papers. Within a month, there was a petition online calling for a posthumous unit citation for Recon Viper 1. Logan shared it with his SEAL community. It spread like wildfire. More surprising? 2 retired colonels and a former CIA analyst signed it. Walter read the names out loud when Logan showed him. "Would you look at that?" he said. Some ghosts still carry pens. Then came the letters, from families who lost loved ones in that part of Laos, from grandchildren whose fathers served and never spoke a word about it, from strangers who read the article and felt something stir deep in their chests, an ache they couldn't explain. One envelope came from Montana. Inside was a photograph of a man standing in front of a rusted-out barn, arm around a little girl. On the back, Red's brother. "He talked about you once." Walter didn't cry, but he kept the photo in his front shirt pocket for a week. Logan visited every few days now, not just to talk, but to plan. He had a bigger idea. Something public. A memorial, maybe. Something to carve their names in stone the way the government never had. But Walter wasn't sure. "We were meant to disappear," he said one afternoon. "Yeah," Logan answered. "And look how that turned out." The old man chuckled. One afternoon, Logan asked, "What do you think your teammates would say if they saw all this now?" Walter didn't hesitate. "They'd probably give me hell for talking so much." Then, more quietly, "But I think they'd be glad someone remembered." The falcon tattoo on his arm had faded with time. The ink was blue-grey now, edges soft. But one day, Logan brought in an artist, a vet himself, trained in restorative ink. With Walter's permission, he carefully touched it up, sharpening the falcon's wings, redoing the barbed wire to match the original sketch Walter still had folded in his wallet. When it was done, Walter stared at it in the mirror for a long time. "Looks like it's ready to fly again," he said. "You never stopped flying," Logan replied. A month later, Walter spoke at a school in Chesapeake. Middle schoolers. Most of them had never heard of Laos. One girl asked if it was like a superhero mission. Walter smiled and said, "No, superheroes get to go home with a parade. We just made sure each other got out alive." When he left, 3 of the teachers hugged him. That night, Logan called him, just to check in. "You know," Walter said, "if your grandfather were here, I think he'd be proud of the way you carry the story." "I'm just following his map," Logan said. Walter didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice steady and warm, he said, "You turned a ghost into a man again." That was the last time Logan ever heard Walter sound that light. 2 weeks later, Walter Dandridge passed in his sleep, peacefully. No hospital, just his old Buick parked outside and a radio playing jazz low in the background. The tattoo on his arm was still sharp. Logan organized the memorial himself. No flag-draped drama, just a small plaque at the Veterans Center near the tree where Walter liked to sit. Beneath it, engraved, "Sergeant Walter Dandridge. He carried those who couldn't and remembered those no one would." And next to that, etched small but forever, a falcon diving through wire. Let this be your reminder. The stories that shape us often live in the quietest people. All they need is someone to ask, someone to care. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel. These stories deserve to be heard. And you never know. Your listening might be the thing that brings someone back to life.